What are defense mechanisms actually protecting you from? So think about this. You might have had a difficult childhood growing up. Maybe you didn't get along with one or both parents. Maybe you lost your parents at a very early age and you didn't really get along with your caregivers, or you were thrown into the system. A way to cope with trauma or a way to cope with stressors is to avoid. That's the standard. That's what we do. If we're on autopilot, that's our go-to. It's great in the moment so that we can function. We can do whatever that we need to do in order to get through the day. So avoiding, even though that it's not really helpful in the long run, it's still helpful in the short term for some people. So some people unintentionally, unconsciously, or somewhat consciously use it as a treatment. So I'm going to use my defenses, I'm going to avoid, because if I avoid, then I don't have to think about it. So some defenses that we create in childhood are denial. So there's a problem, we shoo it away. Repression, it doesn't even register in our mind that there's a problem. And then we can have aspects of projection. So we can unconsciously project a stressor that has happened onto another situation or person. And that becomes tremendously difficult. So then that means that we can be reactive in certain situations that doesn't really call for that. So when we have a trauma, whether it's getting into a car accident or the birth of a sibling, what happens is the psyche changes, right? It forms this barrier, what we call a defense mechanism, and it contains that stressor within that defense. So the more in which we experience pain, the more the container will then strengthen and grow to fit as much information as we need. But the thing is, that container leaks. It's not foolproof. So even though we have defenses that are supposed to help in the immediate situation with, let's say, enhanced functioning, or we don't have to register and necessarily be emotional or triggered by our emotions, right? We want to maybe be more logical, so we're gonna mask it. But what ends up happening is that because the container leaks, it leaks into the conscious mind. This is where we get intrusive thoughts. So you can be going about your day, everything is great, everything is wonderful. And then all of a sudden you have an intrusive thought like you're an asshole. Or you have an intrusive thought that you're never gonna make it in life and you're a huge failure and your business is gonna fail. What the heck? Where did that come from, right? It came from the container. So the container is not foolproof. It's not even helpful in the short term, because even though we might be able to function, we're creating a container that is faulty. Right? Imagine selling a product to somebody else and then once they receive it, it just falls apart. So that's what's happening in the unconscious, right? The container is starting to fall apart, and as it falls apart, it starts to poke through the conscious mind and infect the conscious mind. So defense mechanisms aren't helpful in the short term or the long term. But what is going to be helpful is penetrating through those defense mechanisms. You can do that with your self-help resources, right? So the Ultimate Mental Health Toolbox. And in addition to that, you can also reach out for a complimentary consultation with a consultation care coordinator at the Mind People. And what you can do is discuss what you're experiencing, and the consultation care coordinator will connect you with someone who best suits your needs. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to unconsciously live on autopilot and live the same miserable life that you may be experiencing. There is hope. By processing and breaking through those defenses, you can reach your goals. You can grow and process in such a way as you don't have to self-sabotage anymore. You don't have to get in your own way. So reach out to the Mind People today by clicking the link below, and that's your first step at taking action and beginning to construct your wonderful life.